And it looks like we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to NCS or Non-Canon Shenanigans. I'm not joking when I say I literally created this YouTube channel about 2.5 years ago. I'm pretty sure, and I've done like some stuff, but it has literally been exclusively on my main channel and not this. So this is the official first episode of the channel. Alrighty, do you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves just to familiarize everyone?
I'll go first. Okay.
Sorry.
I'm Chris. I'm from Elementia Studios. I make silly little YouTube videos, and that's my shtick. Yeah.
Yeah, and my name is Connor. I'm a voice actor and 3D artist. I've done a ton of different online productions for voiceover, but in my day job, previously I worked in film and now I'm more in games. But just kind of like to dabble in a bunch of different stuff.
All right, this might sound like a silly question for you, Connor, but for your last name, is it Bushoven or is it do you say it like all together? I don't know if that makes sense.
My family's always said Bushoven.
Bushoven, okay.
Yeah, but it's spelled Bushoven, so it is.
Yeah.
Either way is fine. Whatever's easier. But
I was just curious because I don't think I've ever seen that name before.
Yeah, I think it used to be German at one point, but it's.
Oh, gotcha.
No one remembers.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah. Mine's like Agradano. I don't really know where officially comes from, but it is with last names. They kind of just come from all over the place,
Yeah.
Okay, Sketch is saying that everyone's audio is slightly low, so I'm going to turn you guys up a little bit. Okay, hopefully that's slightly better. Oh no, you're all good.
Okay.
So I just for some reason I went into Streamlabs to prepare everything, and none of my scenes or whatever they're called, the adjustment things actually transferred over from my main YouTube channel. So I just had to recreate everything from scratch. That's pretty much what I spent the last hour doing, is setting up the thumbnail, setting up the channel, setting up this. Setting up multiple YouTube channels is really difficult. I don't know how so many YouTubers can have here's my other, my VODs one, my second channel, vlogs or whatever. I don't know. It's a bit silly.
Multimedia empires.
Exactly. Alrighty, so step closer. Honestly, Chris, I'm gonna be real with you. I think this might be my favorite one so far because, especially with your dubs, the Fazbear Frights as a whole. You always bring a certain level of quality, but it's almost highly dependent on the source material covering. For instance, Fetch is an absolutely amazing. I think you did a killer job with what is basically chicken, scratch drawing. You know what I'm saying? It's some of them are kind of hard to understand what they're trying to go for in the first place.
Well, thank you first of all, but I mean that's kind of surprising for me because I thought Step Closer. There were some moments where I was like, I don't know if people are going to be able to tell what's happening here because and maybe it's just because I was staring at it for long enough. But when you're reading something, it's very different from when you're trying to make that into an actual video, But I'm glad it turned out well. I've heard from a couple different people that it was a really solid episode, all things considered. So I'm hey, I'll take it.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
How did you feel about it, Connor?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the pacing. I think it's always tough when you're trying to adapt media from one form to another, and I think you did a really nice job kind of mapping out the camera movements as well, and just making sure that everything was nice and legible and felt like it worked well in a video format, which is hard to do. So kudos on that.
Yeah.
Well, I think we got to give you some credit though, because that was a pretty solid performance, I gotta say.
Yeah, you really stole the show, man. You wait, who voiced oh my god, Chuck, right? Who voiced Chuck again? I completely forgot.
Username is I don't know if it's Draken. I think it's Draken.
Gotcha.
And he did a pretty solid job. I thought it was great. I thought
yeah, you and Draken did a really good job of bouncing off each other in terms of I don't know. Sometimes when it comes to voice acting, it's really hard to find two people that mesh really well together. And you guys just, I don't know, peanut butter and jelly. And especially I feel your performance was especially captivating, especially since Pete goes through a lot of stress. All these insane things are happening to him within a few day period. So
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I totally agree. I think Draken and the rest of the cast did a really awesome job. It's always tough too when you're kind of stitching together. Because I know I recorded my lines asynchronously. Did everyone else do that too, or were there live sessions where people were?
Yeah, I've always thought about doing like live sessions, but the scheduling for like the stuff that we do is always a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I've just never like fully committed to that. But it's
Yeah.
always something that's kind of in the back of my mind.
It's always cool. It I think brings a project to life in a way that like you get the cast in the room as much as you can.
Yeah.
But it's for an asynchronous read. It's and even it's one of those things where like you can never tell looking at it. And I think it all came together really really nicely.
Yeah, getting people together is always really difficult. I mean, like trying to like get coordinate a schedule for all of us to do this properly was a bit of a challenge. And I mean, everyone's got their own lives. It's just the way it is.
But yeah, I'm very very happy to be here. I know it's time zones can be a real
Yeah.
pain in the neck. And I
yeah,
appreciate
that too.
working with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you guys must be like further west because I'm outside New York and it's right around 9 o'clock.
Oh, gotcha. So I used to live in Colorado, so I used to have the same time zone as Chris, but I unfortunately betrayed him, and now I live in California
How could you
to
do
to
that?
move
Yeah.
out here with Sketch. So now we're an hour apart. We're not even on the same time zone, unfortunately.
That's not even that bad though. An hour, like
Oh man, come on, bro. That could be the difference
manage.
between today and tomorrow.
True.
Connor's the other Connor, Connor Stearman, says Pro VA did a great job as Foxy. I 100% agree. Every
yeah.
single time that like it kind of faded in and out, like the Pirates Curse song, it just really just puts you in the like. I don't even know what I'm saying. Just it built tension really really well. Is what I'm trying to
Great
say.
ambiance.
Yeah, him and Ashby were kind of like working off each other to like put that song together, and I got like little snippets of like how that went, and I don't know, it seemed like they were having fun working with each other.
That's
with
great.
Like, yeah, and I think it turned out well. As always, the full soundtrack that Ashby made is on my silly little second channel. For those who care about that.
Yeah, I
I
should
think
probably
it's
leave a
great
link to it
because
because I don't know why, but like I feel like that channel is really hard to find if you don't actually go through like the channels page on your main one.
which is I think they actually got rid of the channels page recently, like YouTube.
Hmm.
I haven't found it anymore recently.
Yeah, I don't know. YouTube keeps making
They
all
do
these
that a lot.
changes,
They
man.
update things that don't tell people.
Yeah,
People
yeah,
find out after the fact. It's like, oh, where'd that page go?
Yeah, but I'm super grateful that like we're able to have like proper soundtracks for all these
hmm
videos. Like I think that's super. It makes me feel more important because it's like, oh, this is a little more fancy now.
yeah.
And Ashby's always like super excited to make stuff, so it's a win-win, you know.
Okay, so Chris, I got a question for you now. So, Connor, we started off with the Silver trilogy, way back when Chris had like what 8,000 subscribers, something like that.
Uh, yeah, sure, let's go with that. It was around there. I don't remember, but
That's the number I remember. It might have been closer to 10K, honestly. But it's kind of crazy to think that you've grown like by like 4 times, within like what 2.5 years, basically.
yeah, it's been really, especially when the movie came out, like the FNAF movie in theaters, that really like got some new eyes on all the stuff we've made.
Hmm. Yeah, it probably helps that the FNAF movie like took a lot of things like pointers wise from the Silver Eyes
Yeah, there were details where I was like, oh, that's kind of familiar, but
for sure. Uh, but anyway, so with that entire trilogy, I kind of felt like when you were creating them and you were putting that kind of like your touch on it, that they still had separate identities, but they still conformed over like the entire trilogy as a whole. So kind of like what's your process for characterizing each of like the Fazbear Frights? Because I've noticed that like it's still like Elementia Studio certified dub, but at the end of the day, it's still like that. Like Fetch is way different from Step Closer, for instance, and To Be Beautiful and Into the Pit.
I mean, I kind of try to have like similar vibes for all of them. But like kind of like what you mentioned earlier, they all have their different like styles, you know? And for something like Out of Stock, I was like, oh, I don't know what to do about this because that was like a very unique style, and I didn't know like if I wanted to try and go more surreal with it. Cause like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
I wouldn't even know where to start. But kind of the yeah, like the art style kind of guides me into like what I want it to actually like feel like, and then whether or not I succeed with that, uh, I find out when I post the video.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you're asking, but like
I mean, yeah,
that's what goes
that's what I
along.
was asking, man. Thank you. Sorry, I've got like a little
Yeah,
like Google Docs on the side, so
oh wow,
we can just talk about anything and everything. It's just to like steer us back in the right direction. If you know,
yeah.
um, all right. So Connor, so I kind of listened to a little bit of your demo reel, and I kind of noticed that like you've got kind of like a I don't know what to call it, but just like I could there's like a certain voice. I guess it's kind of more like your standard voice or whatever, like when you're like enunciating yourself. For Pete, was there anything else that like inspired you for Pete? Because it did seem like clearly different from some of the other things you've done in the past.
Yeah, so I think my go-to with I like to try out a lot of different things when I voice act,
Hmm.
and like I'll usually try a couple different voices either during an audition or before I even send in a file, just to kind of see what feels right for me, because like I'm a firm believer in the idea of like if I don't believe in the voice that I'm trying to do, then no one else will either. And so for Pete specifically, I kind of was just looking to how I sounded when I was like 15, 16, which
Yeah, you
isn't
did a good
that
job with
much
that.
different. Thank you. It's not a crazy different sound than I currently have, but it's a little bit more nasally, and there's a
Hmm.
lot more uh, anger and spite in certain parts
Hmm.
of Pete's voice, which that kind of uh, informed how I tried to play him, because like I got the vibe that he was a kid who felt betrayed by a lot of people, and I
Hmm.
was kind of hoping to convey that with just calling Chuckles and all the the whole world is against Pete, and then also he
Yeah.
gets hit by a truck, unfortunately. So there may be more truth to that than initially appears, but
Hmm.
yeah, that was kind of what I was going for, is like aiming for like that slightly more nasally, like pre-puberty voice or
Hmm.
mid-puberty voice, whatever. I would have worked a couple voice cracks in there too if there had been more screaming.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I just kind of ramble, so if you don't entirely understand a question I have, just feel free to like just be like,
Oh, no problem.
yeah,
You can send so far.
okay. Um, so what was the process like when you were like first auditioning for this? Because I played John in like the Silver Eyes trilogy. I guess that was back in my day. Like quite a while ago, honestly. And since I'm only 20, that's like a lifetime ago for me. Anyway, though, because I didn't know who Elementia Studios was, Sketch did, but that was before I met her, and I kind of just stumbled upon it. Was that kind of like similar to your experience, or did you kind of already like see some of his other casting calls or like familiar with his other work?
Yeah, so I think when I saw the casting call on Casting Call Club, that was really my first kind of familiarity with Elementia Studios, and I kind of took a look at a lot
Mm-hmm.
of your videos, and I really enjoyed the production quality and kind of the effort that very clearly goes into every video. And that's it's not to say it's rare to find, but there's a lot of projects where there's not the same level of commitment from the creators, which is
Yes.
something that I think is really like exciting about this project and this studio and working with you guys, has just been kind of finding that. And so once or twice a week I'll just go on Casting Call Club on Twitter, and just kind of spend several hours just looking for casting calls. I email them to myself and come back to them when I can, and then
Yeah.
make note of any deadlines, and usually I'll just record a bunch and send them in, and in this case it worked out. It was a lot of fun to record for Pete, and I can't remember if there were a couple other voices I tried in that one as well, but like it's always a matter of trying to figure out what works best for the character, and I'm
Yeah.
very very glad that we get the chance to work together on this.
Alrighty, Christopher. So, for the productions of like the Fazbear Frights, how does it usually start? Do you just kind of like go straight into it, or is there usually like a conceptual phase or anything you try to like make notes of or over analyzing? Anything like that?
Not gonna lie, I usually like because I've read most of these stories like
Yeah.
twice already. I've got all the books like right there on my shelf, and I usually just jump right into like writing the script because I kind of already know like what I have in mind for the story. I write the script and then I make my little casting call page, and then I'm like, please, someone audition for this. And then I find some that are like way better than anything I could have possibly expected, and then Yeah, I bug people for voice lines. I bug Ashby for music, and he's like, "Yes, yes, I'll make 10 tracks for you." And I'm like, "Yes, yes," and then it's done before I know it, and I'm like, "Okay, hopefully people like this now." Um, and sometimes the answer to that is yes.
That's crazy too, because like I've done a couple original projects, and like I know music is like one of those things that it's like mind-boggling to me how people are able to do that, and the fact that you guys are able to whip something together so cool that sounds so cohesive and
Yeah,
works so well with the story is just incredible. Like it's like if I'm working with a composer, it's I have the script or whatever, and then I press a button, and then they do something behind the scenes, and then a song comes out. I don't know how it happens at all. I've never understood musical theory, but it's so cool what musicians and composers are able to do.
oh, I don't have a musical bone in my body, but I'm glad that there's people who do, because otherwise, like, I'd be out of luck.
Yeah, the person who did the music, Ashby. It's still so crazy to me how this happened because he was a fan of your work, right, Chris? Like during the Silver Eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like we made the Silver Eyes, the first book in that trilogy, and then we were kind of like halfway through the Twisted Ones, and he was like, "Hey, I got some stuff to show you," and he sent me some songs. I'm like, "Oh, oh, this is really good." Okay, and then I don't remember how much we had in the first place, but we kind of just like kept adding on to it and he kept like sending me more and more stuff, and I'm like, "Oh, all right." So and I was like, "Hey, do you want to be like just like our music guy?" And he was like, "Yes, absolutely, please." And I was like, "Okay, all right then." And it was the start of something beautiful. And then he joined our little server, and we started having like our game nights and stuff. And he really like brought everyone together as well, which was also really cool, and something that I didn't expect at all. Um, he's just he brings people together. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
It's crazy because that's actually how me and Sketch met in the first place. Um,
Yeah.
so she was voicing Charlie in that trilogy, and I was voicing John, which are canonically like romantically interested in each other, which I think is even more funny that just happened to come together like that. And now we live together, so she's in the other room right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Whenever I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's
people will be like, "Oh yeah, so how'd you and your girlfriend meet?" I'm like, "Well," and then I tell them all this, and they're like, "Okay, that's kind of crazy."
it's a really cool story. I love that.
Yeah, I remember when I was meeting with her last year because I didn't move in with her until like beginning of 2024. But we went to VidCon in Disneyland last year, like during the summer for like a week. That was super fun. We met like Matt Pat, got harassed by Dream Security, so that was pretty fun. um,
I don't think I've heard that part of the story.
yeah, so I think I could probably find the image on my phone, but I actually managed to take a picture with his dumb little mask on because in saying this, I'm not a big fan of Dream I would to begin with, and then this happened. But um, it was really funny because it was like an entire like block, like in terms of like just how many people were crowded in this one area, and they were like pushing and shoving like everyone out of like the security. It was crazy. Sketch was like because I had my little tripod or whatever because I was recording some of it, and she was like they're basically like or harassing me or whatever. Like what the heck? So that was a very interesting experience.
I just like to think of Dream walking around with like a crowd of bodyguards surrounding him in full armor, just glaring at people.
Yeah, and then if someone took off his mask, he would just like doing the weird thing with he was like extending his neck out like a giraffe, just already ready.
Dream, if you're watching, we love you. You're great. You're the best. Right?
Please don't help me down. The worst part is that I kind of like besides the hair color, I kind of look like him, which is the sad part. We both got like this kind of like curly, like poofy hair sort of ordeal.
Long lost brothers.
He just looks significantly less attractive though. That's the only difference.
Oh yeah, of course. Unless he's watching, in which case,
He's the most handsome man on earth.
yeah.
Yeah, he's also like 4'11" or something. Not that I would know, but I'm kidding. He's like 2 inches taller than me.
Is he really?
Yeah, I think he's like 6'3" if I'm not mistaken. He could be lying though. I mean,
It takes a fair bit of like. not skill, but something to be taller than you.
You know, it's only like 70% genetics, 30% luck. You know, not that I would
It's
know.
genetics, something I don't know. Somehow we got there.
Yeah,
Luck.
exactly.
I didn't get there.
Sketch is 5'1", so neither did she. I swear, whenever people meet us, it's like the first thing that they always mention. Like, oh my gosh, the height difference. You're like a foot taller than her. I'm like, yep, yep, I know. I live with her.
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just put things on high shelves.
yeah. I'm pretty much like the strong man of her family because they're all like on a bit of the smaller side, kind of like my mom's side. Like they're a bit like thinner and all that. So I swear, just very athletic and lean. I don't know what like compared to my mom's side, my dad's side, I'm just like just generally bigger. So I don't know what happened there. All right, so Christopher, as for the casting process, what does it usually look like when you're like going through all these casting calls? Because the quality can definitely range, you know. Like there's plenty of like genuine skill on casting call for sure, but then sometimes you have people that have interesting mics or just almost seems like they're not even really trying or being funny on purpose or something like that. So what does that usually
Yeah.
look like when you're like looking through all of these auditions and the good and bad and just what you're looking for and all that?
The sad thing for me is when someone uh, auditions and they sound really good, but their mic just sounds like this, and it's just awful. And I'm like,
Yeah, exactly.
it's tragic. It's really sad. It bums me out. Um, uh, but like, I'm always like more surprised with like just the quality that I see. Like,
Hmm.
there's because I feel like I at some point a couple years back submitted some auditions for some projects and they weren't great. So like, I don't really like judge any if there's some that aren't. I don't want to say like up to my standards because that makes me sound like silly. But I'm always more surprised with just how many are like really really good, which makes choosing, which sucks in a way because it makes choosing the one that I want like that much more tricky because it's like you know there's so many good options. I don't know how to choose, right?
Yeah. I mean, one of the nice things about getting a bunch of auditions in and having, I mean, it's a good problem to have people that more good actors than you know what to do with. But like, if you're doing a lot of projects like this, it's a list of people you could potentially reach out to if you need to
True.
cast someone quickly or someone ends up needing to drop for whatever reason. It's very handy to have that.
Oh yeah, now I've got like a bunch of like contacts for people I can go to like if I need something in the future, and that's great. That's really handy to have in my back pocket, and something that I've definitely used like already a lot in the past. That being said, I also like finding new people because again, like there's so many like talented people out there to go for. I always make like a new casting call just open to the public every time I make a new project. So I'm like I just like having new people um, able to audition because it brings in fresh blood, right?
Yep.
Yeah, there are way more people in the indie voice acting space, and I say this as an indie voice actor that are just talent is blown out of the water every time you hear someone new. It's so many really, really like just very passionate and very creative people out there.
Yeah,
So
like you
Con,
two.
sorry, so YouTube, yeah, real. So Connor, what other projects do you have in the works right now? Like, what's
Yeah.
on the horizon for you?
So, in my day job, I work at Meta as a 3D artist, and we just put
Oh,
out a big
okay.
website with a bunch of hairs, which is cool. So, like I'm on the avatars team, and we, now I don't know if I mean I don't know how plugged in y'all are to it, but it's been kind of cool because we've been able to see people do like new avatars and stuff like that. And so that's what I do for like my career day job. But in terms of like personal projects, uh, one of my big I mean really my big thing that I'm working on right now is a fantasy fiction audio drama called Welcome to the Brass Eagle. And it's we're actively casting for episodes 4 and 5 actually. So if you're watching
Hmm.
this and you're interested in auditioning, you can find it on Casting Call Club. But it basically takes place in this tavern that teleports somewhere new every episode. And so the whole premise is like these people kind of get caught up in the magic of it, and it's a little bit inspired by like Dungeons and Dragons, a little bit inspired by Lord of the Rings, and I think Doctor Who is another good comparison to kind of you have the central location that moves, because I really wanted to try and find a way with the story to, it's all audio based. And so like the nice thing about it is like we can have like an environment that, oh, hey, they're inside the tavern, but also they're on a mountain. So we get to do some fun stuff with the music and the sound every episode. But that's been a lot of fun. Really, really cool team that we're working with there. And we got a couple people from like the Magnus Archives and Sheridan Tapes and some other really big shows, which I'm very, very excited about. Team has been absolutely amazing so far.
That sounds awesome, man. Honestly,
Yeah.
I actually put that on my script because I saw a little bit of that on your Twitter page because I was like looking through that earlier, and I was gonna ask you about it because like I saw like just the description of like a little bit. I was like, okay, I gotta ask him about this. But you pretty much answered both questions, so thank you.
Yeah, no, I can talk about that project all day. My family has to shut me up about it because I'm like, oh, check this, and I'll like show people who have no stake in the show auditions, and I'm like, check out how cool this is. But I'm just it's been so cool. It's a process that is kind of new to me, as like directing and writing something original like that, and it's just been very, very rewarding. And the cool part is getting to work with friends on the creative side, because like,
Oh yeah,
when I mentioned D&D, it's like a lot of the story is kind of inspired by like my tabletop group that I've played with for like 5 or 6 years. And one of my good friends is the producer of the show. One of my friends from school, when I was in college, is the sound lead. And so like, it's been cool being able to bring people together that I know, and also just complete strangers on the internet who have since become acquaintances, work friends, etc. And it's one of the most rewarding parts of the process, is just kind of being able to connect people like that. And very, very exciting stuff in the works. We got some original music as well, which I am so excited about, but I won't spoil
bet.
anything further than that. But
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm starting to work on a project of my own, and I feel like the music part is definitely a little bit challenging because sometimes you kind of have that vision for what you want, and kind of finding all the right components can be a little like difficult sometimes.
Yeah, very true. There are a lot of very good, like, one thing we've been doing for Brass Eagle is like we're using this sound website called Epidemic.
Epidemic,
which
okay.
Is I think it's pretty reasonable. It's around like $99 for a year subscription, but you get like unlimited use. And they have some really great music on that website. Pretty much all except like the theme song of my show are from that. So it's you can do a lot with it. And there's tons of others as well. Of course you've got like Incompetech with Kevin MacLeod or whoever. And then just like I think Alexander Nakarada is another composer I've seen online that I've used a couple things from, and just tons of really great royalty-free songs you can find.
Okay, I'll definitely take a look at Epidemic then at some point.
Absolutely. What kind of original stuff are you working on, out of curiosity? Now, you mentioned that and you teased that. Now I gotta.
No, that's fair. So when I went to VidCon and to Disneyland, I was working on a project called John Sour Memories. It was a spin-off from the trilogy, and if I'm being honest, how you talked about earlier how some creators just don't have the commitment to finish a project. That was me back then. So it was originally going to be kind of like a live-action movie using me and Sketch kind of just as like the live-action counterparts to Charlie and John. Chris actually edited some of the scenes from that, and if I'm being honest, they were shot on such a whim because obviously between Disneyland, VidCon, and recording, there really wasn't much time to just do that, and things didn't come together as I liked. So like I kind of just like quietly canceled that and just didn't really think about it. But I ended up kind of using a lot of the things I wanted. Gosh darn it, Connor Steerman uses like John's Sober Memories. Someone asked me on my YouTube channel when's John's Sober Memories coming out instead of Somber. So yeah, I guess he just had to remind me of that yet again. But I used all the aspects because it was fine just as like a spin-off, like it was just taking place between two of them, second and third one. But it just wasn't as deep as I wanted it to be. So I kind of used some of those elements to create a more interesting story to pursue. Because then I was just, oh yeah, it's just John before this happens. But the project I'm working on, which is kind of like, like whatever. In the second book, John gets back with Charlie and they go on a date. I don't know, the relationship is weird in that book, but he talks about how during the events of the first and second book, he dates this girl and then things got serious or whatever, and then like the relationship kind of fractured and kind of broke apart, and it was just such like a throwaway thing and something that could have been explored way better, that I was like, I kind of want to pursue that and use the things I wanted to use from the other project into that. So I've been working with the person who played Marla Cherry for the voice of like that character, which I think like in the novel she was named Rebecca, but they never said anything in the graphic novel, so we're just gonna name her whatever we want. So she wanted to do Scarlet. We've already started to conceptualize what she's gonna look like. Sketch already got what I looked like as John like a couple years ago, so we just went with that. And it's gonna be more like just essentially fan fiction until I can find an artist or find enough money to get an artist to get a graphic novel version of that so we can eventually dub it. But that is probably a little far in the future. But right now I'm just working on the actual writing process.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, for the songs, I'm trying to like work with someone who actually hasn't worked on any of the dubs before, Wave, good friend of Sketches, and then I'm gonna work with Nabi for one of the like the end song. I don't know. I've got like this very specific vision for what I want to play at the end. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome. And a theme song, whether it's the end theme, beginning theme, whatever you got, that kind of sets the tone for the whole thing too. So it's definitely good to go into that with like some clear picture of what you want. Although you can definitely still be surprised.
Yeah.
You know, but it's very, very cool to kind of hear that come together.
Mm-hmm. Well, I only had like 6 questions. I kind of just typed something together. I don't know. All right, Chris. So, how does because we're kind of talking about this like a couple hours before we went live, just kind of like the work balance in terms of like trying to juggle everything. How's that going?
I am a crazy person,
Yeah.
so I just like work on stuff all day because I enjoy it, and also, yeah, I'm crazy. But you know, going into next semester, of course, like I want to like have more of a balance just because I feel like it would
Yeah.
just
Same
be
here.
better for me. Um, right now I'm putting out like one video a month is like kind of my target, and even with that, it's like sometimes that's with other stuff I have going on, it's cutting it a little close, and I have to like put in a lot of work on that last day. So I think I'm just gonna try to kind of feel it as I go and just see uh, what feels best, you know, because I'm
Hmm.
always worried that I'm gonna be like, I don't know, lazy and like just not do enough. But in the past, that has not been a problem for me. So I think I need to just take a step back and just like kind of see what feels more natural, you
Yeah.
know, if
Chris,
that makes
honestly,
sense.
you're an overachiever, man. You've accomplished so much within the last few years.
I need more. I need more, Evan. I
Yeah,
need more.
you need to make it billions and not millions of dollars in your bank
I'm
account.
on that grind. Yeah,
Yeah.
I need to be like on my yacht making videos. All right. That way I'm rich and I'm still working because there's still more to do.
You're just like sipping like some alcoholic drink and then casually not looking at a computer like a desktop or I guess laptop and then just like randomly pressing buttons and hoping for the best.
That's the goal.
That's like the amount of low effort, high effort like you're gonna go for.
Gotta strike that balance. Yeah.
Yeah. I was only curious because like just like from my perspective, it just seems like you're always busy with something and managing to put out videos on honestly like a really good rate. I mean, I feel like you don't really give yourself enough credit for how efficiently you can make videos and how quickly you do. I mean, like you could have probably released more Fazbear Frights this year if you just said F it, I don't really care, and you just want to release more. But you really took your time, and I'd say they came out at a really good rate this year for sure.
I could definitely crank them out a little, at least a little faster than I am. But I try and like take my time a little bit to
Hmm.
make them to make sure they flow well because that's always like I mentioned before, like trying to turn a graphic novel into something with like your sound, especially like the sound design. It takes more careful thought than I expected going into my first one. But I think that like after
Yeah.
doing like three different like movie length dubs, I think I've gotten a better idea now of like, okay, this is kind of what it takes to put this together.
Yeah, that's a little bit of experience under your belt.
A little
Yeah.
bit.
Insane. But oh, props to you. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the original trilogy was really just like the blueprint for how you're gonna make your future videos because the Silver Eyes, you didn't use any like created music. You used, I'm pretty sure you pulled everything from the like FNAF like soundtracks, right?
At least almost everything. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I went into it thinking like I want to use stuff that's only in the Five Nights at Freddy's games, and then I think there was some stuff where I was like, oh, I might have to use like like some freely available like music because there just wasn't anything else in the series that would really fit the vibe I was going for. But I think it was mostly stuff from the games.
Yeah,
Um, Leon Riskin
yeah.
probably has his name all over the credits that video.
Dude, his back must be sore from carrying the entire trilogy with his music.
No kidding. And the entire series, honestly.
Yeah, he always does an amazing job.
Oh yeah. He's been working on them since like what, the fifth game, I think? Sister Location.
I think so
Yeah.
because I think before then, did you just like get like music you could use for free or what? Like, I don't think he made them,
Uh
right?
yeah, for the first few games, Scott, like obviously he wasn't really expecting the series to blow up the way it did. So he was using a lot of music online, and a lot of it would be copyrighted. So people, anyone making videos about these games, would have their YouTube revenue like taken because he was using music that he didn't have the license to use or something along those lines. Things got a lot better once he hired an actual composer to put stuff together. And now there's now I don't even know how many games there are. I guess it depends if you count like spin-offs and stuff because there's probably like over a dozen at this point.
Yeah, I
And
mean, if
almost all of them have that music.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Me personally, whenever I think of like the FNAF franchise, I always think of like Scott's Run. I don't really think of like everything as a whole because then you're including silly stuff like FNAF World and Launch Security Breach and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean FNAF World, that was all Scott.
Yeah, I mean, I still
I
enjoyed it, but I
liked
can
it.
understand why people were upset with like the kind of like the timing and all that.
Connor, how familiar are you with the world of Five Nights at Freddy's?
I'm familiar with like the broad strokes of it, like I think I've really only played the original game on the like iPod 7 or whatever it
Oh
Yeah,
was when
wow.
it came out. Like I think it, like it came out when I like the first game when I was like a freshman in high school, I think. And so it's something that I have like I'm passingly familiar with, and I'm familiar with like the concept of like the animatronics come alive at night, and but really not quite as well versed as you two. I
Okay.
I'm slowly learning. There is a wide world of games, media,
yes,
comic books. It's insane just how big the franchise is, which I think is really cool.
So I
It's
guess
always when you kind of discover something like that.
so you're not familiar with Fazgoo yet.
Huh? I'm certainly
Okay,
not.
we won't get into that. That's okay.
Can I
Yeah,
Google that?
at your own risk.
uh,
There's
or
there's
Impreg
like I
MatPat.
think yeah, oh yeah, there's that too. Because there's like over 2 dozen. There's more books than games at this point. There's over two
Hmm.
dozen books. I think there's like a dozen games. There's a second movie on the way.
I thought there was like 40
Um,
books, like
40
everything. Well, there's Fazbear.
maybe.
Well, there's the Fazbear Frights, Tales, which is 24. Then all the graphic novels, which is so three from the original trilogy, and then what? Only four from Fazbear Frights. I don't know if all of them come
Five
out yet.
for Fazbear Frights. Then there's another one coming up
Hmm.
for the Tales series, and yeah, I mean, it's too much. I can't keep track anymore.
I think there's 40 because that's 32
Oh,
with
and
the Fazbear Frights. Then there's
there's
uh
the Choose Your Own Adventure kind of books.
the guides that came out like 5 years ago.
There's the
Yeah,
guides.
so at least 40.
There's the if you count the coloring. There's like coloring books.
That's it's about partially
Are
canon
these all
too.
like canon or?
Partially. That's actually
Oh,
how they figured out Cassidy's name, right? Or am I
there's
mistaken?
like three different timelines and stuff. So I try to stay away from all that stuff because it would not be good for me if I tried to understand all of it.
Mm.
Basically, Connor, dead kids and they possess animatronics. You're an expert now.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
I know at least that much. I will say it's Five Nights at Freddy's sounds like it has become the Kingdom Hearts of the horror genre a little bit. I don't know, like just
Yep.
because I that is a series I grew up with, and like Kingdom Hearts is insane because I'll hear someone explain like, oh, this villain is here, but he's also the shadow of that villain who is not really this guy who took his name from someone else, and like there's like
Yeah.
eight different versions of and like it's cool. It's really neat like diving into the lore and hearing that kind of thing, but it's like like not being that familiar with it, some of it just sounds like Latin.
Yeah, no, some of it sounds like Latin to me. So.
Yeah, the person in our chat, Connor Stearman, he is a massive Kingdom Hearts fan, so he probably gets that more than anyone else here. For me personally, like in terms of like when it comes to franchises that are way too complicated, I'd probably say the two I followed the most is probably FNAF and COD Zombies because it has like there's the Ether like storyline and then the Dark Ether storyline, then there's Chaos and then like a few games that just got kind of forgotten about and brought back for no reason, stuff like that. So it's all very confusing for really no reason other than we need to make more of them.
Yeah, I don't remember much about the COD storyline for Zombies at all. I just remember I kind of fell off of like trying to even remotely
Yeah.
understand it. And Rick Tofen was also a child. Like there's one game that they put out a few years ago where it's like, oh, he's not an evil man, he's a kid also, and I think he still shows up in the new game somehow.
Yeah, so that character, the young version of Richtofen, him and Samantha, because basically in Black Ops 3 they needed to get the pure souls of them as children, but in Black Ops 4 they broke the loop and then they took Samantha and Richtofen into a different universe, which was Black Ops Cold War, and then Samantha did Black Ops stuff or whatever, and then Richtofen like experimented on her and then like is a main character in Black Ops 6. So those two characters come from the multiverse that is Black Ops 4 and beforehand for really no other reason other than these characters have been here since 2010.
The COD CU.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, Black Ops 4 is all about them collapsing the multiverse, and maybe the MCU needs to do that at some point.
MCU needs to do something at some point.
Yeah, I don't know if y'all saw the Superman trailer, but I mean, like,
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard very good things. It's on my
it looks really good. I'm not like a huge DC guy, but I'm just a fan of good superhero movies, and DC hasn't really been delivering lately.
Yeah. I feel like Batman's been kind of keeping all of DC from just like crumbling to dust.
Yeah,
That's kind of always been the case, yeah. 'Cause, like every Batman I
Yeah.
can think of, people get really hyped for it and they get good reviews and they're always positively received, and then you get Shazam.
yeah, Fury of the Gods especially. Oh dear. I was telling Sketch about that one. And I was like, oh yeah, so there's this one part where this young girl who's like a 10,000-year-old god kisses like a teenager, and then they start dating or something. So that's canon, I guess, to that cinematic universe.
Very cool.
Yeah, thank you, DC.
I don't know how I feel about the Superman trailer. I'm kind of conflicted on it.
Really? Why?
I just maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but when the dog showed up, I'm like, okay, so this isn't going to be a serious movie, you know? And then there was I forget who it was. I think I saw like
Nathan Fillion.
what? Sorry?
Oh, I thought that's what you were talking about. Everyone's been talking about this guy Gardner guy. So
I just like I don't know what to expect yet. I'm not like pessimistic about it. I just don't know because like all the Superman stuff seems cool, but then there was like other heroes showing up, and I'm like I don't care about any of these people, which could change. I have no idea. I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah. Not having seen the movie, it does feel like there's a trend with like superhero movies in general to just cram as many references and people in as possible, you know?
Yeah.
Like you're never going to get the Spider-Man movie ever again that's just Spider-Man, you know? Like you're going to get Spider-Man with Doctor Strange and every other hero you can think of in cameos or the end credits or whatever. And I know that's the MCU, but like, it's just hey, let's put as much fan service and references in there as possible, even possibly at the cost of like a movie focusing on a single character.
Yeah. I think that is part of it. I was kind of hoping it would be like just a solo, like it's just Superman, and then like Hawk Girl is in the trailer, and so I'm like, okay, that's fine. It could still be good. It's not what I was expecting.
I don't think I've ever heard of Hawk Girl. Is she like a deep cut? Like is she?
She
like
has that mace or whatever, like the spiky ball mace.
Yeah. The only reason I know about her is because of the Lego Batman games, and she's in that game. I've never heard of her outside of that. So
It's funny.
Those games
but
are
she's in this
peak.
movie. So
Okay.
I don't know. We'll see. Again, I'm not like saying it's gonna be like a
Yeah.
bad movie. I don't know, and that's the scariest thing, is not knowing.
I don't know. After the Snyderverse, like Superman, like I think we just need a very like modern take of this character that isn't like trash. You know what I'm saying? Because like I've never like been a huge DC guy, but Superman like like when they play to his strengths, he seems like such an interesting character. Because I was seeing some snippets from
Yeah,
Superman and Lois, and that show actually looks decent for a CW show. I've been
I've
considering
heard
checking
that.
it out.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've heard good stuff about that one too. I have not watched it though. But yeah, no, I think Superman in general is one of my favorite heroes because he feels like he's
Hmm.
just like, I guess being one of the first ones, people give him a lot more leniency with like, oh, he's literally the trope of a superhero. He is outer space, double identity.
he can
Um,
fly,
he can, yeah, he has literally pretty much like
super
he's
strength. He's
basically
yeah.
invincible, you know, and it's like, um, it's fun. I think it's like it feels like it dispenses with a lot of like the modern stuff that superheroes have done because now like it's just nice to have someone to root for, because you get so many anti-heroes nowadays that like I know
Or
that
evil
people try-
Superman clones. You know, as much as I love Invincible and The Boys, I can definitely understand why people are fatigued by that trope for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, the problem is how do you tell a story about Superman when he is, yeah, like basically invincible? Like you've got the kryptonite stuff, but it's like I don't know. That's a physical weakness. What do you go for like his character? You know,
I
what's his foil?
I think the go-to is always like maybe not in terms of a foil, but like the go-to with every Superman story I've seen is it's just they target the people around him that aren't invincible. You know, like
Hmm.
Lois Lane
Yeah,
gets kidnapped or his parents are in the line of danger, and like that's what I've always seen as like being portrayed as his biggest weakness, aside from a glowing green rock, is literally just like
That
it's like
everyone seems to have as well.
yeah, it's he
it's
can't be
very yeah.
everywhere at once, and he has people he cares about, which I think is kind of a cool thing, and I think when done well, it can work really well. Um, Plus, I'm excited for Crypto in the new Super movie. I think I
Yeah,
really wanted
Crypto
to
looks
see
great in it.
the animated series for that, and that was a lot of fun.
So Chris, Goth Mikasa in the Attack on Titan movie.
Look, I don't know what you're talking about. That is not something that matters to me at all. I'm going to watch that movie because I like seeing big monsters fight other big monsters. Okay,
Oh yes,
so
Flash mechas. We love Flash mechas.
we do. That's a name for it. Yeah, um, and I'm sure Goth Mikasa is someone's thing, but not me. No, don't worry about that. So you know.
You want to tell Connor about your short video on Attack on Titan?
Oh yeah. How familiar are you with Attack on Titan?
Vaguely, I know there's big monsters that attack the last city on Earth,
Okay.
but also some people can turn into the monsters. That's about it.
Oh,
And
big
also, they have
spoiler.
really cool whips.
Yeah.
Like that they use to
Um,
kind of grapple around.
I'm not too familiar with it either. I did make a really short like video about it though, a couple months back. So it's nothing crazy. Like I was working on other stuff at the time too. It's just like 8 hours, but I figured I'd make that just to oh, did I say 8 hours? Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it
you
wasn't
kind of
really.
slipped that one in there,
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't want to mention that. Shoot, yeah. But that's there. It's a reminder of
Small video, the length of a workday on Attack on
yeah.
Titan. That's crazy, though.
If it's a slow day at work, there's something for you there, or not.
Yeah, I think I remember
Is it like a
watching
lore deep dive, or
more like a
It's
series
it's
overview, honestly.
it's kind of like an analysis of just like everything, and also kind of a plot summary. I feel in retrospect, I feel like I summarized the plot a bit too much, uh, but I'm not gonna make it again to try again because I think it's best to just let that kind of sit there. Uh, but I came to some good conclusions in that video. I think I did an okay job with it.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it. You know, that was right before I moved to California, so I was just a dishwasher at City Market. So, less countless hours of doing quite literally nothing but listening to music and very interesting video essays and stuff.
Yeah, that'll pass the time. You
Oh
know.
yeah, oh yeah, that was very awesome. That was right before I got really back into the series and I played Attack on Titan 2 and all that.
Oh yes, I saw you had like what, a 21-day streak in that game.
Yeah,
We gotta. I shouldn't. Me saying anything about that is a little hypocritical. But
yeah, so apparently 21 consecutive days I at least logged on once. That's what probably surprised me the most about my Steam overview because you just see all this like it shows you that your activity throughout the year and you just see in February how it's like 90%. That's I spent like of my like what like 130 hours or something on that game. I don't know why I was so invested in that, but
it's a solid game.
I mean, it's a like okay, listen, I'm very critical. So when I say it's an okay game, it's the best we could have gone out of the game it was because you have so many of these games that are like based on animes that are just like huge grind fests. Like the one that I can think of that comes to mind is the Tokyo Ghoul one. Literally just you play a mission, you get like a few parts and then you build a cool sword or something after 10 hours, super riveting stuff. But I think Attack on Titan did a good job of balancing that type of gameplay and making it more interesting because I mean in the end game where you've got the best gear you can just zoom around like a madman for sure.
Yeah, I've played some VR Attack on Titan games, and like those are pretty solid. Like there's one official one. There's a couple fan made ones that I think are also really solid, and um, honestly I've probably played more of those than the actual official like
Yeah.
flat screen game. But I thought it was pretty good. I don't know. I definitely didn't get into it as much as you did. I made an 8-hour video instead. Um, but it was pretty good.
I should honestly review the game at some point because the game got pretty like less than favorable scores when it came out because it was pretty much just a 1.5 of the first game. Like uh the first game just went into like half of the season two's content, but it didn't even finish the whole season if I remember correctly. My brother played the hell out of that. He like got to level 99 with Levi because it was an entire different leveling system. Instead of getting to like level 15, you could get to like level 99 with each character. And then like the gear system was a lot like it was similar but somewhat simplified from what I saw. But anyway, pretty much all of it was the same except with insert your own like character sort of like campaign, which those are probably the worst ones in most anime games. But I don't know.
It's just a shame that they adapted in the end like every single season except the last one, and we
Yeah.
never got the last season. Um, that's tragic.
Well, it's not like it's
Maybe
like a
maybe some
season and a half's worth of content or anything, but
they have to. They came so close. They have to do it at some point. I'm sure there's still money to be made there. Right? So
yeah, I mean, I would love to see like a final season themed game for sure because like it just has such a different tone. Like it goes from like, oh man, it's like a massive mystery to almost everything being on the table at once, which just serves for a really great viewing experience, especially for the first time.
yeah, but let's not spoil anything. We wouldn't want to ruin any surprises for those of us who are not as familiar.
Yeah, sorry, Sonic.exe appears in the post credit scene. Just letting you
True.
know.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, I went to with Sketch's family to watch Sonic 3, and I kept saying that Bend Around and Sonic.exe were going to be in the post credit scene. It wasn't nearly as interesting as that, unfortunately, but the entire movie was really great. I'm not gonna lie.
How is it ranked compared to the first two? I only saw the first one, but
I would probably say the first. Like at first, it kind of felt like right below a 7, but kind of like as it went into the second act, I would probably say that movie as a whole is maybe like a 7.5. Like it was solid, but like
okay.
it just leaves a lot to be desired for an origin story. And then the second one's really good, but they focus way too much on this set of human characters, which if you haven't seen it before, you will know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes up. Like if they would have cut it out of the movie, it would have just made it better as a whole. So that movie's I'd probably say like a solid 8, and then I'd say Sonic 3 is like a 9. Like I barely have any complaints about it.
I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I always find it funny how some people they do the like 10-point rating system, but 5 is like terrible, and 10 is like amazing, and then 1 to 4 just gets like it's just not even considered. I don't know. I always get a
I
kick out of
think it's
that.
yeah, it's because people I like it always feels like they want to pull their punches a little bit when they're reviewing
Yeah.
movies. Like it's
Mhm.
like I think the same is true of video games. I rarely see a game get below like a 60 if it's bad, and if it's really bad, maybe a 40. It would be the absolute lowest I've ever seen. And it just feels like people want to say, well, someone made it. That's worth a couple points, you know? Like
Which like I do
bare
do
minimum,
the
you get a
same thing,
2. Yeah.
but I get a kick out of it either way.
I don't know. I can probably think of a couple games that would probably make it in the like below 5, because I would say 60 is like the point before it becomes almost unenjoyable. And then like I don't think I would ever give anything like a 1 or 2, because I mean like I can't make a 1 or 2 movie, you know what I'm saying? Like in terms of like putting in the theater and comparing it to other movies. So I don't know. Maybe my review system is like, I get like some people like to use 1 through 10, but I feel like that's just slightly more misleading, because it's like by using like an average like grade system, more or less, it's like much more feasible, right? I mean, if you get a C minus, then it's like, wow, there was a lot of room for improvement, you know? And that's how I kind of feel about the first Sonic movie. Is like, it's not terrible. Like I enjoyed it. Like it was like one of the better video game adaptations, but it has left a lot to be desired, you know? So I'd say 75 is perfect for that movie.
Oh yeah, I think that's fair.
I don't know. There's like this one theme that I swear a lot of YouTubers use in their like videos, where it's like a very very lighthearted like whistle like theme, basically, from like a game where you're like a detective like hunting down demons or something. It's a terrible game. I wish I could remember what it was called, but that's probably like a 3 or 4 game, because it's just awful. But I wish I could remember what it was called. Mr. Steerman says, I always see comments in IGN reviews say, well, you can't spell ignorant without IGN. He's not wrong. Oh, I guess they're not wrong, but
Yikes. Scathing.
I think IGN has gotten a little, like, marginally better with reviews in recent years, but I remember they were, like, pretty rough with reviewing games for a while. They just had such wildly different criteria. And the one that I always think about is, like, when I think Pokemon Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby, whatever I think that's the name. The
yeah, it
remakes of
was.
the originals that were on 3DS.
Mm-hmm.
They said that, like, they were like, all of a sudden in that review, they were like, "Oh, this map has too much water, too much. You have to use surf too much." And
That's
it's
the
like
whole
too much
region.
water became a joke because literally, and it was a remake. It was almost like a 1-to-1 remake of the original game, and they didn't have that to say in 2003 or whenever that came out. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, so what changed, IGN? But yeah, just funny stuff.
Yeah, I think something similar happened with the Sonic 3 movie. If I'm not mistaken, might have been the other Connor that put something in other junk about it, but it was how IGN said that Sonic 3 was like better than the other two, which I agree with, but then they rated it lower, like in terms of overall score, because I think the other two were closer to 8, and then
We're hard
that was
on
7.
Sonic because we love him.
Yeah, exactly. It pretty much sounded like that too.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Mr. Steerman also says, I remember they gave almost every Call of Duty a high rating. Most of the bad ones too. I'm pretty sure, like in that phase where they're given all, like they're just glazing AAA games back in like I want to say 2013 to like 2017. Like that era of CODs is terrible. I'm a huge Call of Duty fan. You could probably tell from my my Xbox and Steam recaps, but but yeah, those games really weren't that great if I'm being 100% honest. And like I just remember them like Advanced Warfare getting like an 8 or something, and like that game's really forgettable. Like I think even 6 is a little high for that game at times. I don't know. So it's just kind of crazy. Like some of the reviews on even other stuff, I know the most infamous one is New Super Mario Bros. For the Wii, but sorry, I want to see if I can find this game. Okay, so yeah, it's called Condemned, I guess. The part of the reason it was so terrible was Deadly Premonition. That's that game is awful. It was a port from like a Japanese game, and then they added these terrible like forced in like third person shooter sections that like played horribly. So that game's probably like a 30 or 40%. That's what I was talking about earlier. But
Well, with that glowing recommendation, I'll have to check it out.
I think they ported it to the Switch. I think it's widely available, but Connor also says, I know IGN also was getting crap for giving the FNAF movie a 4. I don't know if I didn't like it that much, but I don't think it was that low.
I think, as a fan of the series, it was very fun. As a movie, I'm a little more negative about it.
If you're being
It has
critical, what would
problems.
you give the FNAF movie out of curiosity?
Honestly, I might agree with the 4
Really?
because
I don't know if I would say that low, but I would say like 5 to 6 if I'm being honest. Like the production quality's there. Like I love how Springtrap looks, how the animatronics look, how they look, act. Um, but the story is really, really bad. I'm not gonna lie. Like it
for
just.
a
Oh, sorry. What?
for a scary movie, um, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Um, which even apart from that, yeah, the story didn't make. There's parts of it that didn't make a whole lot of sense. Um, I'm trying to think of there, Golden Freddy is like teleporting around town, which raises a lot of questions. Um, the whole one thing that I really got a kick out of when I was watching that movie was when William Afton, the whole killer in the series, he's the guy who commits all the crimes basically. He kills a bunch of kids back in the 80s because he's not a great guy, and he's about to die. He's putting on
I always come
his
back.
suit, and he says, "I always come back," which is really funny because at this point in the story, he has not come back one single time from anything, and
You
it just
think he's
doesn't
gonna
make
die?
sense. He just dies there, and then he never comes back from anything. Obviously, he will at some point, but at that point in the story, that line makes no sense, and he only says it because it's a thing that he says in the games, where it makes a lot more sense, and it was very funny, but it wasn't very good. That's I think kind of a good description of the majority of that movie. Um, but seeing MatPat in it was funny. I pointed at the screen and I went like this. So I said, "Wow, look, that's MatPat there," and I clapped. But other than that, I'm like, eh.
I'm probably just severely biased, but like, I just feel like the FNAF movie is just a very bad interpretation of the Silver Eyes at times. Like, it isn't a one for one copy for sure. Like, it's got plenty of changes, but like, it almost feels like they wanted to fit a mold that was kind of similar to the Silver Eyes and just kind of like glued together like bits and pieces that didn't really fit all that well. Like, Vanessa being a cop and like kind of interacting with security guards or William Afton as a whole, it was like it just felt like almost awkward the way that it all fit together, which was very unlike like Sonic 3 for sure, because like it was largely based on Sonic Adventures 2 from what Sketch told me, and it didn't feel like it was based on anything. Like they connected this like the new and old like really well, whilst the FNAF movie just felt like they're like scribbling on a whiteboard with a like literally gave a toddler like a you know what I'm talking about, just like a Sharpie or whatever to go
Yeah.
around on a whiteboard and just hope for the best.
I mean, I've heard that they have taken the criticisms of the first one, so the second one's coming out in like what 10 months, so maybe it'll be like way better. I'm down for that. That'd be really cool. But if it's also just like a fun time for the fans, I'm okay with that too,
Yeah.
because that's what the first one was for me. I had a great time with it, even if taking a step back, I don't think it was the best thing ever. Um, so I feel like the only thing that would really be disappointing for me is if the second one is just boring, which I don't think it will be. I think even if it's not great, I think it'll at least have a lot of fun stuff for the fans, like the first one did. In which case, I'm happy with it, for what it is.
Hmm.
But I would really like for it to be more than that. You know, that's what I'm hoping for.
I would kill for like a Silver Eyes like trilogy TV show at some point, because like it would be like the best way to improve like and extend and like decrease parts of the story that either mattered or didn't, and just like I don't know, maybe I'm just coping, but I just feel like the movie, the way that the book goes into like very granular detail about like things that don't matter, like it'll be like, oh look, there's like a little like puddle, it ripples in a very odd way, and then Charlie will never mention it again. Like that
Some
type
of
of
that
stuff
stuff
fits
there
more
was
of
a
a
reason
TV
for
show.
it.
I
One of the
mean,
coolest things about the books for me was in the first book, uh, So okay, well, okay. In the very last book of the series, it's revealed that the main character was a robot the whole time, which is super wacky, but it's a fun twist. And at first it kind of seems to come out of nowhere, but then you go back to the very first book, and there is little details that kind of foreshadow that. Like in the third book, it says that her memories were made with a camera on a tripod, and you're like, well, that's silly. But then you go back to the first book, and there is references of in her old house there are tripod marks on the floor, and for the time being, you kind of brush over it because it doesn't make much sense. But then you come back to it, and it's like, oh, okay, so they had a plan the whole time, and that's something that I always like really appreciate is when even if there's like a crazy twist, if they can kind of like lead up to it, and it's clear that it's what they intended the whole time, then I enjoy it that much more.
Unless we're talking about the gravestone scene from the end of the Silver Eyes, then we just kind of ignore that.
We can ignore that.
I like how in Project Scarlet they partially show that grave. I appreciate that. At least I wish the graphic novel, like the actual one, would have done something like that.
But alas, it was not meant to be.
I suppose not. All right, fellas. Well, it has been an hour. I don't want to keep you guys here forever. If you got plans or whatever. I had a really fun time though. This stream was super cool. Getting to see more of the behind the scenes stuff for sure. Honestly, that's like my favorite part of like working on anything like project related from Chris or anyone else is just getting to see like behind closed doors and just see all the things go on behind the scenes for sure.
I mean, my side of things is usually a little boring to look at from an outside perspective because I'm just like editing stuff and putting stuff together. But I always find everyone else's parts like super interesting, like the actual like acting and the music, and it's always super fun to see it come together in the end.
I mean, you had a couple parts in the dub as well for A Step Closer and some of the other ones.
Having a starring role was out of stock was really fun. I don't know if I did a good job at it, but it was fun to do.
I really
I'd
liked
like
it.
to do more of that in the future, because it was fun, as selfish of a reason as that might be.
No, I mean, why else do anything in the creative field? It's
True. That's a good point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, that concludes our first episode of Non-Canon Shenanigans. That's officially on the YouTube channel. I still can't get over how I didn't do anything with this channel for 2.5 years, but we're back. We're here, so that's all that counts. Anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed the stream. We're gonna leave it here, and see you next time. Hopefully soon. We might do the Sonic 3 breakdown with Nick.